Nova had always believed Earth was loud. Even in the small farming settlement where she grew up, there were always sounds: engines, birds, shouting neighbors, children playing in the dust. But now, as she sat inside the transport shuttle heading toward the Helion Military Academy, she realized what true silence felt like. It was heavy. It was cold. It pressed against her ears like deep water. She sat in the last row, her hands on her knees, her back straight. Her brown hair was tied in a tight braid. Her eyes stared at the metal floor. She didn't speak. She didn't ask where they were going or why she was chosen. She already knew no one would answer. 4 alien cadets sat across the aisle. They were tall, with smooth gray skin and bright green eyes. They spoke softly in their own language, sometimes looking at Nova as if she was an insect inside a jar. She looked back once. The aliens turned away quickly, whispering. Nova was 17. She was human, and she was the only human on that shuttle. The Helion Military Academy was not built for humans. It was a special training facility for alien soldiers, elite alien soldiers, those who would serve in the coming wars near the Outer Rim. No one expected humans to be part of that world. The shuttle shook gently as it broke through the station docking barrier. A soft voice spoke overhead in 3 languages. Nova understood only the English version. Academy arrival complete. Prepare for disembark. The shuttle doors opened with a hiss. Cold air rushed in. Nova stood and followed the others into a long metallic hall. Lights glowed white along the ceiling. The walls were polished like mirrors. Rows of alien instructors in black armor stood waiting. Their helmets had glowing lines that moved slowly, like pulses. A tall officer stepped forward. His voice was smooth and sharp at the same time. "Welcome, cadets," he said. "You have been selected for training in the Helion Military Academy. You will obey all commands. You will follow all rules. Failure will not be tolerated." The alien cadets bowed their heads. Nova stood straight, unsure what gesture she was expected to make. The officer paused when he saw her. He walked toward her slowly. His boots tapped on the metal floor. Other instructors watched her with cold interest. "A human," he said. His voice held no emotion. "Unexpected." Nova did not reply. The officer circled her like someone inspecting a machine. Why send a human to an elite academy? Is Earth desperate or curious? Nova kept her gaze forward. She felt her heartbeat, but her face showed nothing. That was how she survived on Earth. That was how she survived now. The officer stopped in front of her. "State your name." "Nova," she said softly. "Full name, Nova Ayers." The officer nodded. "Nova Ayers, you will be observed carefully. Humans are untested." The alien cadets stared at her, some with curiosity, some with disbelief. One whispered loudly, "Humans are weak. They will break." Nova heard it. She did not react. There was no reason to fight words. Not yet. The officer motioned forward. "Cadets, move." They walked through the hallway and entered a large viewing chamber. The walls were transparent, showing the endless black of space outside. Stars burned in the distance. A blue planet rotated slowly far below. Nova pressed her hand against the glass. It was cold and perfect, without scratches. The instructor spoke again. "This is your new home. You will eat here, sleep here, train here. You will not contact your families. You will not leave without permission. You exist now for one purpose, to be shaped into something useful." Nova swallowed. She remembered the day the recruiting ship landed on Earth Outpost. Soldiers walked through the town, pointing at teenagers and asking for medical scans. When they scanned Nova, they whispered to each other. Then they pressed a tag in her palm and told her to pack a bag. Her mother cried. Her father stood silent. Nova did not cry or speak. She just walked into the transport. Now she understood. Earth did not choose her. The aliens chose her. The instructor snapped his fingers. A door opened. Inside was a huge training hall with white floors and tall, glowing pillars. Dozens of alien cadets from other shuttles were already there, standing in perfect lines. Most were taller and stronger than the ones from Nova's shuttle. Some had extra arm joints in their arms or glowing eyes. Nova felt very small, but she did not show it. "Cadets," the instructor shouted, "you are here for one reason, to test your willpower. The body can fail, the mind must not." He turned his glowing mask toward Nova. "Even the human will learn this." Alien cadets snickered under their breath. Another door slid open. A panel rose from the floor with silver bands and glowing keys. The instructor pressed one. The lights in the hall changed from white to deep red, and low alarms sounded. The doors locked shut. Nova's spine tingled. The alien cadets stood straighter. The instructor paced in front of them. "Trial 1 begins now." Nova's breath slowed. "Trial 1, he said, is simple. You will hold your position. No movement, no reaction, no collapse. The room will change. You will not." Nova blinked. That sounded easy, too easy. Then the gravity shifted. Her legs became heavy, her arms shook, her breath felt thick in her chest. She dropped to one knee, trying to stand again. Alien cadets grunted, some collapsing on both knees. One fell straight to the floor, unable to move. The instructor watched without sympathy. Pain makes weakness, weakness makes death. Hold your position. Nova pushed against the floor, her arms trembling. She had never felt such pressure. Back on Earth, she carried sacks of grain and water buckets. That was heavy, but this was like lifting a building. She forced herself up, inch by inch, until she stood again. Her heart pounded in her ears, sweat rolled down her neck. The instructor tapped a button. The gravity increased again. Alien cadets screamed. One fell and did not get up. Another crawled back into line but could not stand. Nova's eyes burned. Her legs shook. She remembered her mother's words. When it hurts, breathe. When it hurts more, breathe slower. So she breathed, slow, steady, calm. She did not move. She did not fall. She survived the first test. The instructor looked directly at her, and the alien cadets did too. Their expressions changed from amusement to confusion. A human was still standing. The red lights dimmed. The gravity lowered. The trial ended. Nova did not smile. She did not celebrate. She simply whispered to herself. That was just a warm-up.
After the gravity trial ended, the cadets were led out of the training hall in silence. Some limped. Some supported each other. A few were carried away by small, hovering medical bots. No one spoke. No one dared to show weakness. Nova walked behind them, breathing slowly. Her legs still felt heavy and sore, but she kept her face calm. The instructor's mask turned toward her once, as if studying her posture, but he said nothing. The group entered a long corridor with dim yellow lights. Along the walls were screens displaying alien symbols and rankings. Nova noticed her name at the very bottom of the list, flashing in red. Next to her were two numbers: strength, low; willpower, unmeasured. Every alien cadet checked the board. When they saw Nova's position, most smirked or laughed quietly. Nova just looked at the data. It did not matter if she was last. Data could change. Willpower could not be measured yet. The instructor stopped at a large gate. Behind him, the symbol of the academy glowed bright, a star surrounded by 5 claws. He pressed a panel, and the gate opened into a wide hall of glass walls and bright blue lights. "This," he announced, "is the academy's central block." Nova looked around. The hall connected to other sections through bridges and elevators. She saw alien cadets moving in lines, bots carrying supplies, and officers watching from control towers. Everything was clean, organized, and controlled. The instructor continued speaking. His voice echoed through the hall. "The academy teaches 3 types of strength: physical, tactical, and willpower." He pointed to the glass wall on their left. Beyond it, dozens of cadets ran on treadmills with heavy weights attached. Others lifted metal blocks twice the size of their bodies. Sensors tracked their heart rates and muscle stress. "That section is physical training," he said. "It shapes the body. Bodies can be replaced. Bodies can fail. Bodies are simple." He walked to the next window. Behind the glass was a room full of holographic maps and moving targets. Cadets shouted commands in alien languages, while digital soldiers moved across a war simulation. "That is tactical training. It shapes the mind. It teaches control. It teaches order. No chaos, no emotion." Nova watched one alien cadet slam his hand on a console in frustration. A shock pulse burst from the table, jolting him. He quickly returned to calm. Nova understood. Emotion was punished here. Finally, the instructor pointed toward a dark door at the far end. Red lights glowed around it, and armed officers stood guard. "That," he said, "is the willpower wing. It is the heart of the academy." The alien cadets shifted uncomfortably. Some whispered. Nova watched their reactions carefully. They didn't fear physical training. They didn't fear tactical training. But willpower training made them uneasy. The instructor faced them. "Most cadets fail in the willpower wing. Some collapse, some scream, some simply quit." Nova asked quietly, "What is inside?" The instructor tilted his head, surprised that anyone spoke. Aliens rarely asked questions. Questions were seen as disrespect. "You will find out," he said, turning away. He led them to the living quarters next. The doors slid open to reveal rows of sleeping pods. Each pod was a small glass capsule with a bed, a drawer, and a screen. No decorations, no pictures, no softness. Nova stepped toward an empty pod and placed her small bag inside. The bag contained only two things, a clean uniform and a small carved piece of wood her father gave her. The academy did not allow personal items, but Nova kept it hidden in her sleeve. She refused to let that be taken. As she sat on the bed, a loud tone sounded overhead. A robotic voice spoke in 3 languages again. "Meal cycle. Report to cafeteria." Nova followed the others into a large cafeteria with shining floors and square tables. Robots delivered trays with green paste and protein cubes. The smell was strange, the taste was worse, but Nova ate it quietly. Nearby, the alien cadets whispered again. "That gravity trial was nothing. Wait until the cold room." "I heard the human almost fell." "No, she stood the whole time. I saw her." "She'll break in Willpower Wing. Humans break fast." Nova pretended not to listen, but she noted every word. Aliens thought humans were weak. Aliens thought humans were emotional. Aliens thought humans could not survive their systems. She wiped her mouth with the napkin and continued eating. After the meal, a buzzer sounded. The instructor returned and ordered, "Follow." They walked to a circular room with white walls. The instructor placed his hand on a scanner. The floor lit up beneath them in neon blue patterns. "This is the behavior chamber. Here we measure discipline, reaction speed, listening skills, and emotional control." A panel slid open and a small orb floated out. It hovered above them, glowing with white scanning lines. "Stand straight," the orb spoke in a calm, neutral voice. All cadets obeyed. "Raise right arm." They obeyed. "Lower arm." "Raise left arm." Nova followed every command. She was used to simple instructions. Then the orb changed pace. "Spin, jump, kneel, stand, kneel, look up, look down, hands behind back." One alien cadet moved slightly after the freeze command. A red light shined on him. The orb spoke, "Emotional hesitation detected. Punishment mode." The cadet jolted as a small electric shock hit his wrist. He grunted but stayed still. The test continued for 10 minutes. Nova's breathing stayed constant. She kept her face blank. She moved fast, even when confused. The orb finished and went quiet. The instructor checked a panel. Behavior scores: Kale, 95, Syrian, 93, Vorn, 89. He paused when he reached Nova's name. Human Nova Ayers, 98. The room fell silent. Even the instructor paused longer than normal. Alien cadets stared, confused. A human scored higher than them. Nova didn't smile. She just returned to her pod after dismissal. She lay on her bed, hands behind her head, eyes open. The academy was not like home, but home taught her something no alien understood. Humans do not need orders. Humans make choices. On the ceiling above her pod, a small glowing sign appeared. "Tomorrow, Willpower Wing, Trial 2." Nova closed her eyes. She was ready. Nova woke to a soft alarm that vibrated the glass of her sleeping pod. The lights in the dorms brightened slowly, mimicking sunrise, though there was no sun inside the orbital station. Alien cadets climbed out of their pods without speaking. They stretched, adjusted uniforms, and formed a silent line at the door. Nova slid out of her pod and joined them. She did not know the exact schedule, but she understood rhythm. The academy worked like a machine. If she followed the machine, she would not get crushed by it. An instructor entered the room, his mask glowing faint blue today instead of red. He raised his arm and pointed. "Willpower Wing, move." No explanation, no detail. The cadets marched through the corridor and into a lift. The lift dropped downward quickly. Nova felt her stomach float for a moment. The alien cadets looked calm. They were used to this. The lift doors opened into a dark hallway. Cold air brushed against their skin. The walls were black with silver streaks. The atmosphere felt heavy, not physically, but mentally. Nova understood immediately. This place was designed to make you feel small. 2 guards in gray armor stood at the entrance. Behind them, a large black door slowly slid open, releasing a thin mist. The smell inside was metallic, cold, and sterile. The instructor led the group inside. The Willpower wing looked nothing like the training halls above. It was silent and dim. The walls were thick with insulation, and the sound of their footsteps died immediately after they stepped. There were no posters, no screens, no lights except above the doorways. The instructor stopped in front of a long control panel. Behind glass windows on the other side were 10 chambers, each with transparent walls, each empty. "Today," the instructor said, "begins Trial 2, the Environmental Endurance Test." Alien cadets swallowed nervously. Nova noticed that reaction. The instructor pressed a button. The chambers lit up one by one. Inside each chamber was a raised platform with a single metal chair in the center. "You will enter your assigned chamber. You will sit. You will endure." Nova asked softly, "Endure what?" The instructor looked at her, mask glowing in cold light. "Whatever the Academy chooses." That was the only answer. One by one, cadets were assigned to chambers. Names appeared on a glowing panel. Nova watched her name flash. Chamber 9, Human Nova Heirs. She walked to the 9th chamber door. It opened with a hiss. The air inside was colder. The walls were frosted, as if the chamber wasn't just cold, it was refrigerated. The metal chair in the center looked uncomfortable. No cushions, no straps, just a plain seat. She sat. The chair was icy, biting into her skin through her uniform. The door closed behind her, sealing with magnetic locks. The lights dimmed to a dull blue. She rested her hands on her legs and breathed normally. It reminded her of sitting by the frozen river on Earth in winter, watching the water move under the ice. Then suddenly, a voice echoed through hidden speakers. "Begin." The temperature began to drop. Nova felt her breath become visible. The cold crawled up her arms and into her fingers. Within minutes, her teeth began to chatter. The metal under her legs felt like ice against bone. On the other side of the glass, alien instructors watched and recorded data. Their holographic screens showed thermal readings and heart rates. Chamber 2's cadet began shaking violently. Chamber 4's cadet pressed the emergency button. A buzzer flashed. Fail. Nova looked straight ahead. Her breath came out in short white clouds. The cold bit harder. She whispered inside her mind, "Cold is nothing. Cold is air with sharp teeth." She remembered winters on Earth. Her father chopping wood while she carried buckets of water with frozen fingers. She remembered the taste of snow on her lips. She remembered running through the frosted fields until her lungs burned. The cold here was worse, but the memory helped. The instructor's voice echoed again. Phase 2. The temperature dropped again. Her eyelashes froze. Her hands felt numb. She moved her fingers slowly, forcing circulation. If she stayed still, she would freeze faster. If she moved too much, she would break the rules. So she found balance. She clenched and unclenched her fingers every few seconds. She tightened her jaw to stop teeth from chattering. She kept her breathing slow and deep. In Chamber 7, an alien cadet cried out, "Enough! I withdraw!" A buzzer flashed. Fail. Nova didn't look. She didn't react. She just breathed. Minutes passed. Maybe 10, maybe 20. Time felt slippery in the cold. Her body screamed for warmth. Her brain wanted to imagine fire or blankets, but Nova understood something important. The Willpower wing tested the mind, not the body. If the mind stayed calm, the body could survive longer than expected. The voice echoed again. Phase 3. Final. A gust of freezing air blasted through vents. It hit her face like knives. Nova closed her eyes and breathed slower. The pain was sharp, but temporary. Then suddenly, warmth. The chamber heated abruptly. Steam rose from her skin. Her cold-burned limbs throbbed painfully as blood rushed back. She realized the Academy didn't want to frostbite them. It wanted to see who panicked in extremes. Many creatures suffered more from sudden change than steady pain. Alien cadets in other chambers gasped, shouted, or collapsed from shock. One fainted as he slid off his chair. The instructor marked it as fail. Nova trembled as heat flooded her muscles, but she kept sitting. She didn't scream. She didn't move from the chair. When the heat cycle ended, the temperature returned to normal. The door opened with a soft chime. Test complete. Nova stood slowly. Her legs shook. Her fingers hurt, but she walked. Outside, alien cadets leaned against walls, exhausted. Some were wrapped in heated blankets, others sat on the floor staring blankly. Nova stood straight. The instructor read the results from a glowing tablet. Endurance ranks: Syrian, passed; Vorn, passed; Kale, passed. Then he paused. Human, Nova Airs, passed with stable emotion. He looked up. Stable emotion is rare. Alien cadets stared at her, not with pity now, but with something new. Confusion, and maybe a touch of respect. Nova just nodded once and walked to the exit. But before she reached the door, she heard one alien whisper, "How can humans survive that?" Nova did not answer, because humans didn't just survive. They adapted.
After the willpower trial, the cadets were sent to rest zones. The hallways were quiet, lit by soft white strips along the walls. Most of the alien cadets walked slowly, shaking their hands to warm up their fingers or rubbing their arms to ease the cold. Nova walked with them, keeping her breathing normal. Her body still hurt from the temperature shifts. Her hands were red from the cold and then swollen from the heat, but she held them close to her sides. She refused to show discomfort. They entered the communal rest bay. It looked like a medical room mixed with a classroom. Metal benches lined the walls. Heating panels glowed softly. Several small medical bots floated around, scanning students for frost damage. One bot scanned Nova's face, beeped once, and displayed a message on its small screen. Result: stable. No medical intervention required. The bot moved on. Some alien cadets stared. Most of them needed heated towels or recovery injections, but Nova sat on a bench with only a cup of warm water, her eyes forward, her breathing calm. Across the room, 3 alien cadets whispered. Their skin was pale blue, and their heads had small ridges instead of hair. One of them, Kale, leaned closer and said quietly, "How do humans handle cold? They do not have fur. They do not have thick scales." The second one, Syrian, looked at Nova. "Maybe she is hiding pain. Humans hide everything." The third, Vorn, shook his head. "She did not scream once, even during phase 3. Nova heard them clearly. She did not answer. She remembered what her mother told her once. If someone expects weakness, silence confuses them. After rest time, the cadets were called to the main hall for evaluation. The instructor in the blue mask stood in front of them, holding a glowing data tablet. "Trial 2 results are confirmed," he said. "Several cadets failed, several passed, one drew special attention." The hall fell silent. The instructor looked directly at Nova. "Human, Nova Airs, step forward." Nova stepped out of line. Alien cadets stared at her, some with curiosity, others with irritation, but none with laughter. The instructor tapped the screen and spoke. "Passing willpower trials is rare. Passing without emotional collapse is rarer. Humans are known for chaos. They are not known for discipline." He paused, then continued. "The instructors want observation. Artificial intelligence wants analysis. Command wants answers." Nova did not understand everything, but she understood the last word, answers. The instructor lowered the tablet. "You will report to the cognitive lab at shift 14. Several cadets inhaled sharply. The cognitive lab was not a normal place. Most cadets avoided it unless ordered. It was where alien scientists studied behavior, memory, emotion, and mental patterns. Nova nodded and stepped back into line. After dismissal, she returned to her pod and sat on her bed. The wood carving her father made rested in her hand. She ran her thumb over the smooth surface. It was a small bird, nothing special, except to her. She hid it under her pillow again before the scanners could detect unauthorized objects. Later, when Shift 14 arrived, Nova reported to the cognitive lab. The lab was bright and sterile, white walls, silver floors, and no windows. Instructors did not control this place, scientists did. A tall alien scientist with silver skin and a transparent mask approached her. He carried a long tablet-like device that projected holographic lines around her as he scanned her. "Human female," he said in a calm voice. "Age 17. Earth origin. No military background. No augmentation. Interesting." Nova stood still. She did not know if she was allowed to speak, so she waited. The scientist turned and waved her to follow.
They entered a small chamber with clear walls. Inside was a chair and a headset with silver needles and glowing wires. "Sit," he said. Nova sat. The scientist placed the headset on her head. The needles did not pierce skin, they attached with electric contact points. "This device reads electrical patterns in your brain. It measures emotion. It measures reaction. It measures thought." Nova blinked. "Thought?" The scientist paused. "Not full thoughts, only shape of thoughts. We cannot read human words yet." Nova nodded slightly. He tapped the tablet. "We observed something during Willpower trial. You did not shut down. You did not panic. Instead, you used emotional memory. You remembered warm environments. You remembered coping strategies." "How do you know?" Nova asked. He answered simply, "Your brain temperature shifted. Your heart slowed. That is not normal during cold shock." Nova did not realize they could track such things. The scientist continued scanning. Alien symbols filled his screen. He whispered to himself, "Humans use pain differently. They turn discomfort into imagination. They create safety from memory. That is not logical." Nova raised an eyebrow. "Sometimes imagination helps." The scientist stopped typing. He stared at her. "Humans are strange. You use imagination in survival. You use emotion like energy." He put his hand on the headset. "Aliens do not do this. Aliens reduce emotion during danger. Humans increase emotion." "Which one is better?" Nova asked. The scientist said, "We do not know. That is why you are here." He removed the headset. "Your mind profile is being studied now, but more tests are required." Before Nova could leave, another scientist entered. This one was younger and smaller, with green lights on his mask instead of blue. He looked nervous, almost excited. He asked the silver scientist, "Is she the human who passed the environmental trial?" "Yes." The younger scientist stepped closer to Nova, his eyes bright with curiosity. "Is it true you did not scream? Did you not feel pain?" Nova answered honestly, "I felt pain, I just stayed calm." "Why?" the younger scientist asked. Nova thought for a second. "Because pain is only a message. It does not have to control you." The younger scientist stared at her as if she had spoken magic. The silver scientist looked annoyed. "Emotional statements. Humans speak like poets. We need data, not poetry." But Nova's words planted something in the lab, an idea that maybe humans were not weaker, just different. When Nova left the cognitive lab, alien cadets in the hallway stared at her, not with laughter, not with mockery, with fear. Because fear comes from the unknown, and right now, humans were unknown, and that made Nova dangerous.
3 days passed since Nova's session in the cognitive lab, and the academy atmosphere had changed. It was not a loud change. It was quiet, like a shift in the air that only careful people noticed. Alien cadets no longer smirked when Nova walked past. They did not whisper as loudly. Some stared and then looked away when she met their eyes. Even instructors held their gaze on her for a few seconds longer than before, as if trying to understand something they had not seen before. Nova did nothing special. She did not try to stand out. She woke up, trained, studied, and rested. But that was enough, because here, even calm was unusual. On the morning of the third day, the entire academy was gathered in the main hall. Hundreds of cadets stood in lines. Silver screens showed alien text and glowing diagrams of brains, hearts, and nervous systems. Nova stood with her unit. Kale, Syrian, and Vorn stood nearby. They kept glancing at her, then at the screens, then back at her again. The head instructor, wearing a gold-trimmed mask, stepped forward. His voice echoed through the hall. "Cadets, today marks the final Willpower trial." A low murmur spread across the hall. Even seasoned cadets looked shaken. No one liked this trial. The instructor continued. "Trial 3 is called the Void. It tests the mind, not the body. It tests silence. It tests isolation. It tests darkness. It tests what you do when you are alone with yourself." Nova listened carefully. This did not sound like cold or heat. It sounded worse. The instructor raised his hand, and the screens displayed images of floating pods, dark chambers, and lightless rooms filled with nothing. During the void, all external senses are removed. There is no sight, no sound, no smell, no touch, no signal, no time. Nova felt a small chill, not from fear, just from the unknown. The instructor spoke again, slower now. Alien races depend on order, on system, on structure. In isolation, many minds fail. Panic grows, logic breaks, emotion becomes enemy. Only strong willpower survives. He paused. Those who fail will be removed from the academy. That caused real reaction. Several cadets tensed, a few swallowed hard. One rubbed his forehead nervously. Nova thought about Earth, about how humans could sit alone in their rooms for hours listening to music or imagination. She thought about waiting for her father to return from long work shifts. She thought about lying under the stars with no sound except her own breathing. Silence was not new to humans, not to Nova. The instructor pointed toward a large black door behind him. "Report to the void chambers." The cadets marched. Nova followed them down a long hallway that descended deeper and deeper, like walking into the heart of the station. The lights dimmed until only thin blue lines guided their steps. The void chamber doors opened with a hiss. Inside were dozens of pods, sleek silver capsules with a single seat inside. They looked like metal coffins. Nova watched as medical bots checked each capsule. Scientists monitored screens. Instructors stood by with scanning tools. Everything about this room said, "This is serious." Kale whispered to Vorn, "I heard trainees go mad in there." Vorn whispered back, "Or they fall asleep and never wake up." Syrian said nothing. He just looked pale. Nova stepped forward and scanned the roster screen. Her name flashed. Pod 14, Nova Ayers. She walked to Pod 14. It opened with a slow hydraulic sound. The inside was padded with dark material, like soft leather. There were no straps, no screens, no buttons, only a seat. A scientist approached her. He was the same young alien who had questioned her in the cognitive lab. His mask lights flickered green with nervous energy. "This is your first void?" he asked. "Yes." He paused, then lowered his voice. "Most aliens panic in 10 minutes. If you feel panic, breathe slow. If you feel fear, focus on something real." Nova nodded. "Thank you." He stepped back. "Good luck." Nova sat inside the pod. The walls were close, but not too tight. The pod door slowly closed, sealing with a deep click. Then, darkness. Total darkness. Her ears filled with nothing. No hum, no air sound, no vibration. It was like floating in space with no suit. Nova waited. At first, her brain searched for something to focus on. It reached for sound, then sight, then touch, but found nothing. Absolute sensory vacuum. Many alien minds broke at this point. They depended on external information. Without it, they collapsed. Nova breathed. She counted in her head. She imagined numbers as floating shapes like she did as a child. She imagined stars above a field, old memories of Earth's skies. She imagined her father carving wood birds while humming quietly. Minutes passed, but inside the void, minutes felt like hours, or seconds, or nothing at all. Time lost form. Nova's breathing stayed calm. She had lived through boring Earth nights with no entertainment, no power, no noise. This was familiar, just darker. She imagined Mira and Jonas, the friends she once had at school, laughing during lunch break. She thought about home, not because she missed it, but because humans stored strength inside memories. That was their secret. That was their power. Aliens did not understand that. Outside the pod, the scientists stared at a screen showing Nova's brainwaves. One scientist frowned. "Her emotional rhythms are stable." The silver scientist before leaned closer. "No, they are rising." The younger scientist asked, "Rising? Why? She should be collapsing." The silver scientist whisper explained, "She is not suppressing emotion, she is using it." Inside the pod, Nova imagined rivers, stars, forests, rain, ordinary human things, and her brain stabilized instead of breaking. Meanwhile, pods around her showed signs of panic. Cadets pounded on walls. One screamed. Another begged for release. Alarms notified instructors of mental collapse. Those pods opened early. Those cadets failed. Nova did not know any of this. She floated in her own mind, calm and patient. Then, without warning, light. The pod opened. Nova blinked. Her eyes adjusted. The scientist with green mask lights stared at her with wide eyes. "How long was I inside?" she asked. He checked his tablet. 2 hours and 18 minutes. Nova blinked again. That sounded short to her. It had felt like maybe 20 minutes. Around her, only 5 pods remained unopened. The others were empty. 16 cadets had failed. The instructor with the gold-trimmed mask entered. He checked the data from each pod. When he reached Nova's screen, he stopped for a long time. Then he said words no one in the academy expected to hear. Human Nova Air's highest stability rating. All the cadets in the room stared. Nova stepped out of her pod, legs steady. The instructor looked at her, mask to face. The void breaks most advanced minds. You treated it like rest. Nova answered calmly. I have been alone before. Silence filled the room, because aliens feared loneliness, and humans learned from it.
The day after the Void trial, the Academy moved slower than usual, not because schedules changed, but because minds were shaken. The Willpower Wing removed 16 cadets from the program. Their names disappeared from screens, their pods were cleaned, their uniforms packed away. Nova noticed that no one spoke about them. Failure was not discussed here, it simply vanished, like erased data. After morning nutritional cycle, Nova stood in the central hall with the remaining cadets. The gold-masked head instructor entered, followed closely by 2 scientists, one silver, one green-lit. In the center of the hall was a platform that had never been used before. It rose from the floor as white lights circled it. Holographic text appeared above it in alien language, then translated to English. Post-trial evaluation and advancement ceremony. The room felt heavier. The instructor raised his voice. Cadets, Willpower trials have ended. Many failed. Few survived. Fewer passed with control. 1 passed with stability. All eyes turned toward Nova. This time there was no laughter, no whispering, no smirks, only silence. The instructor continued. Alien races have always trained through order, command, discipline, but one race trains differently. Humans train through chaos, memory, emotion. The silver scientist stepped forward. He tapped his tablet, and a holographic display appeared above Nova, showing brainwaves during the Void trial. They were smooth curves, not spikes. He spoke clearly. This human did not suppress emotion. She transformed it. She used memory to create calm. She used imagination to create safety. This is not weak mental function. This is adaptive mental strategy. Murmurs spread across the hall. Some cadets were shocked. Others looked impressed. A few looked offended. The instructor continued. We study alien races that remove emotion in survival, but this human survived by using emotion. This is new to us. Nova listened quietly. She did not feel pride. She felt curiosity. She wondered why no alien ever thought of doing the same. The head instructor raised his hand for silence. All cadets who passed the trials will enter advanced training branches. These branches are specialized. They decide your future roles in war. He motioned toward a large display wall. It showed 4 divisions. 1. Combat Division. 2. Tactical Division. 3. Engineering Division. 4. Psychological Warfare Division. Immediately, alien cadets straightened. Psychological warfare was the rarest. Only 2 or 3 cadets each cycle were chosen. It trained minds to win battles without weapons, through fear, strategy, and manipulation. The instructor read names one by one. KL, Combat Division. Syrian, Tactical Division. Vorn, Engineering Division. The cadets nodded with mixed pride and relief. Then the instructor turned the tablet so the hall could see. One name glowed alone under the final category. Nova Air's Psychological Warfare Division. A wave of shock moved across the room. Even the scientists paused. Nova stepped forward automatically, though no one had called her yet. The instructor looked down at her from the platform. Psychological warfare is not about killing enemies. It is about controlling them, breaking them, understanding minds. This academy has never placed a human in this division. Nova met his glowing mask without fear. What do you want me to do? The instructor answered without hesitation. Learn what makes humans dangerous. The green-lit scientist smiled nervously. The silver scientist wrote something fast on his tablet. The instructor continued. Psychological warfare cadets study 5 areas: fear, adaptation, loyalty, emotion, influence. He paced slowly as he spoke. Alien minds break from fear, but humans grow from fear. Alien minds avoid chaos, but humans create order inside chaos. Alien minds do not understand loyalty. Humans will destroy worlds for it. His voice dropped lower. This makes humans unpredictable, and unpredictability wins wars. Nova did not smile. Her voice was calm as always. So you want to use humans? The instructor shook his head. We want to understand humans first. A loud tone signaled division assignments. Guards guided cadets to different exits. Nova walked alone toward a black doorway with blue symbols. It scanned her face and opened. Inside was a small, dark lecture chamber. Screens showed alien battle reports, news of planetary conflicts, and emotional graphs of soldiers under stress. A new instructor waited inside without a mask. He looked older than the others, with silver lines on his temples that moved like glowing circuits. He did not greet her. He simply asked, "Tell me what you felt in the void." Nova took a seat. Nothing at first, then memory. What kind of memory? Earth, she said. Home, friends, sky. Not sad memories, just normal ones. The instructor nodded slowly. Alien soldiers would have crumbled. They would have begged for release, but you traveled in your mind instead. Nova shrugged lightly. There was nothing else to do. The instructor tapped his tablet. This is what makes humans dangerous. Nova tilted her head. Why? He looked at her directly. Because when aliens lose control, they break. But when humans lose control, they adapt. Nova thought about that for a moment. She never considered humans special. On Earth, humans were just humans. The instructor turned off the screens. Your training starts now. You will learn how to use emotion as weapon, how to use silence as trap, how to make enemies surrender without battle. Nova asked, "Why choose me?" He answered gently, "Because you survived loneliness." Nova sat quietly. She realized something then, something important. Survival was not about strength. It was about staying alive in any environment, even inside your own mind. As she left the chamber to begin her first training session, she heard cadets whisper behind the door. That human, she did not break. She did not panic. She did not scream. She just adapted. Nova walked down the hall with steady steps. For the first time, she felt purpose. Not because she wanted to win a war, but because she finally understood why she was chosen. She had not been trained to obey. She had been trained to endure. And those who endure win.